Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance webinar. We'll give folks just a couple of minutes to join, and then we'll get started. Thanks so much for being here. As you're joining, please feel free to drop your name, your organization, and your location in the chat. Wow, it's so great to see so many folks joining us. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Pagan Pagioni. I am the Vice President of Workforce Strategy and Innovation here at the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC. The National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance is supported through a grant from the Bank of America Foundation, which brings together workforce, education, industry, community, and public sector partners working to strengthen pathways into clean energy and energy efficiency careers. Again, if you're just joining us, please drop your name, your location, and where your organization in the chat. Today's webinar, From Awareness to Employment, Co-Designing Workforce Activation for the Clean Energy Transition, is a little bit different from some of our previous Alliance sessions. Rather than focusing on a specific program, tool, or initiative and hearing from partner organizations, we're going to be sharing an emerging framework that IREC is working on, designed to help us better understand workforce activation, pathway progression, and career outcomes across the clean energy and energy efficiency workforce ecosystem. And this webinar is also the beginning of a broader co-design process. Throughout today's session, we're going to share lessons and observations from some of IREC's workforce initiatives, introduce our new career activation framework, and invite your perspectives on the questions that we're continuing to explore through interviews, upcoming in-person convenings and workforce strategy labs, and future Alliance at Great engagement. We have a really great discussion planned. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback throughout our time today. I really encourage you to join in the conversations in the chat. We're going to be posting some prompts in there later, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts and getting your input. Next slide, please, Michelle. I know we have a lot of regulars here on Alliance webinars, and many of you are most likely familiar with IREC, but for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'd like to just give a little bit of background. The Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC, is a national nonprofit. We've been around for over 40 years now. Next year is actually our 45th anniversary. And we work to build the foundation for the rapid adoption of clean energy and energy efficiency to benefit people, the economy, and our planet. And that word foundation is really important because much of our work focuses on creating the conditions that allow these industries to grow and thrive. And we do this through three core areas. Our state regulatory program helps create policy and market conditions for clean energy to scale. Our local initiatives programs helps communities adopt resilient energy solutions. And third, our workforce development programming, where I sit, is focused on workforce development. So across all of our initiatives, we work with organizations like yours, employers, educators, community-based organizations, public agencies to really try and strengthen pathways into clean energy and energy efficiency careers. And we do this work through workforce strategy, technical assistance, career exploration resources, apprenticeship and credentialing initiatives, employer engagement, and national workforce partnerships. A lot of the ideas that we're going to discuss today are really informed by the lessons that we have learned across our workforce development efforts. And that's one of the reasons that we're excited to begin this conversation with all of you, because so many of you have already been part of our work. Next slide, please. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. We do have closed captioning available. If you'd like to show the captions, please select show caption from the controls toolbar. It should be at the bottom or the top of your screen. All participants are on mute, but we really do encourage you to use both the chat and the Q&A feature to submit questions at any point during the webinar. We will leave time for questions and discussions toward the end of today's session. I also want to note that IREC does not allow AI note takers or bots to participate in our webinars, so any that join will be removed. And finally, I've already seen a question about this in the pop up in the chat. We will be sharing a recording, a copy of today's slides, and any additional follow-up resources with everyone who registered. But because several members of our team are going to be out on planned vacations following today's webinar, there is going to be a delay. We usually try to get it out within a few days, but you can expect to receive the materials from today, the week of July 6th. And with that, Michelle, next slide, please. We'll take a look at today's agenda. We're going to begin by sharing some context of why we've been developing the Career Activation Framework, introduce the framework itself, and then we're going to walk through some examples from IREC initiatives that helped inform our thinking. And toward the end of the session, we'll look at what comes next and how you can participate in shaping the future of this work. And next slide, please. If you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, I see folks from all over the country. So great to have you all here. Some folks that I recognize that are dear friends and partners, and others that are new. Thank you for being here. I'm Pagan Pagioni. As I mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Workforce Strategy and Innovation here at IREC, where I lead workforce strategy, partnerships, and workforce development initiatives across our entire workforce portfolio. And joining me today are two of my colleagues who have really been instrumental in shaping some of the initiatives that we're going to discuss today and ensuring their success. So I'll pass it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Pagan. Hi, everyone. I am Pilar Heflin. I am a Senior Workforce Program Manager here at IREC. I support workforce partnerships, career exploration initiatives, our credentialing programs, workforce ecosystem development, and data-informed workforce strategies that help strengthen pathways into clean energy and energy efficiency careers. Susan?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan Eber, Senior Manager of Apprenticeship Programs here at IREC. I lead our apprenticeship and work-based learning initiatives and work closely with employers, labor organizations, training partners, the Department of Apprenticeship, state apprenticeship agencies, probably a number of you I might have worked with, to expand apprenticeship opportunities. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thanks so much. So together we're going to share some examples from our work and some of the lessons that we've learned that have informed the career framework, and kind of discuss what we're thinking and why we've designed this. Before we get started though, Michelle, next slide, please. I just wanted to thank the Bank of America Foundation for funding this National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. It was launched to create space for workforce, education, industry, and our workforce community to come together, learn from each other, share promising practices, and explore solutions to common challenges facing us in both the clean energy and energy efficiency sectors. Again, I really encourage you to use the chat to connect with each other. If you see someone that's posted from another organization that might have a connection to your work, feel free to use the chat to connect with them. Next slide, please, Michelle. So some of our Alliance initiatives, we have our bi-monthly webinar series. That's an ongoing series. We have them scheduled through the end of this year. Every other month, we bring folks together to share resources, emerging best practices, and workforce strategies. I've talked a little bit about our career activation framework. That's a focus this year. We've designed it as a national co-design effort. It includes workforce ecosystem engagement, pathway mapping, and framework development. And today's conversation is really the kickoff to a broader engagement with all of you. A key area of this work is creating in-person opportunities to connect through workforce strategy labs and other convenings. For example, late last year, we hosted a youth talent pipeline strategy lab focused on home energy and building performance careers. And this fall, we're going to continue that work through a Midwest-focused in-person strategy lab in Chicago. That is going to be September 28th, and it will focus again on refining and developing and refining the career activation framework. If you're not already subscribed to Alliance updates, you can use the QR code to stay connected. And I think we're going to drop the link in the chat. Thanks so much, Pilar. If you're interested in participating in any interviews or in-person convenings or future framework development activities, please feel free to reach out to anyone on our team to connect about that. And now let's shift to today's feature presentation. Next slide, please, Michelle. And I should note, we have Michelle Barrett in the background. She is our logistics extraordinaire, coordinates all of our webinars, and she didn't have a chance to introduce herself, but we really appreciate her participation in being here. So feature presentation. So over the last several years, through our workforce initiatives, employer engagement efforts, our career exploration programs, developing courses like Exploring Solar Careers course, our new apprenticeship ready course, our credentialing work, apprenticeship partners through the Apprenticeships and Clean Energy Network, and conversations with a lot of you all over the country, we keep encountering a lot of the same challenges and questions. And kind of the core question is, how do we move more people successfully into clean energy and energy efficiency careers? And kind of just as importantly, how do we better understand where workforce pathways break down and what helps people continue progressing? The career activation framework really emerged from those questions. It's an effort for us to better understand workforce activation, pathway progression, and the factors that help connect both awareness and exploration to employment, retention, and advancement. And before we introduce the framework itself, we'd like to hear from all of you. So I'm going to pass this to Pilar. And thanks, Michelle, for advancing to the next slide there.
Yes, we would like to hear from you before we share more about the framework. So please tell us in this poll, in your experience, where do you see the biggest breakdown in clean energy workforce pathways today? Oh, we already started participating. Great. Okay. So we have our options are career awareness and exploration, access to training and education, employment connections, support services and navigation, retention and advancement, or coordination across workforce partners. Oh, look at that. We're great. Thank you for the participation. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. Then we'll close the poll. Oh, awesome. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, Michelle, I think we can close it now. Great. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. It's always interesting to me to see how all these challenges are interconnected. That's one of the reasons why we began exploring a framework that looks at workforce systems, pathway progression, and outcomes all together. I'm going to turn it back to Pagan now to share more about why we started working on this framework. Pagan. Oh, I think you're muted, Pagan.
I am muted. Thank you so much. I just want to confirm that everybody was able to see the results of the poll and that we shared them rather than just closing them. We may need to go back one slide and share them. There we go. I think folks can see them now. Great. Thanks for confirming in the chat. This is the interactive conversation part of it beginning. Nicole Popejoy, I also, great to see you here. I noted that you put in the chat that you would have liked to be able to choose more than one. Absolutely. I do think that there are multiple places that we would probably choose. We really wanted to get to the kind of the primary breakdown, just as a way to capture an instance in time, and we'll share this information out with folks in our follow-up as well. So thanks so much for sharing your perspectives. I think, like Parlar mentioned, no matter where people identify challenges, those are often interconnected. Over the past several years, through a range of our workforce initiatives, we keep encountering similar questions and themes, whether we're working on career exploration resources, apprenticeship initiatives, workforce ecosystem mapping, technical assistance projects. We keep hearing variations of the same concerns, and a lot of this are borne out in workforce research like our solar job census or the energy efficiency jobs report. So fragmented pathways, employers are struggling to find talent, job seekers are struggling to navigate opportunities and understand available pathways. Workforce organizations are working really hard to support participants, but often lack visibility into what happens next. And many organizations are measuring success differently, which makes it a little bit difficult to understand how all of our individual efforts contribute to broader workforce outcomes. We also realize that different organizations tend to focus on different parts of the workforce pathway. And as we continued seeing these same kind of patterns emerge across our projects and hearing similar stuff from folks like you, we started asking if there might be a better or a useful way for us to better understand how the workforce ecosystem activities connect to pathway progression and career outcomes, which is ultimately what led us to development of this emerging model, which we're calling the career activation framework. So Michelle, next slide, please. So like I mentioned, this is an emerging model. It's designed, we hope, to help us better understand workforce activation, how people progress along career pathways and career outcomes. It's intended to provide us all with a common structure to start thinking about workforce ecosystem development, identifying opportunities for stronger coordination, and really creating a more complete picture of workforce outcomes. And as I mentioned, the framework is evolving. Today's webinar is really the first public conversation that we're having to kind of begin refining and testing these ideas with all of you. Next slide, please, Michelle. So career, because we need another acronym in the clean energy and energy efficiency sector. If anybody is keeping track of acronyms that folks should know, write this one down. So the left side focuses on workforce system design, and the right side focuses on individual pathway progression. And together, they help us understand both how workforce systems function and how individuals move through them. And this graphic is kind of an initial attempt to illustrate how we're thinking about this framework. So it has two connected layers. Career on the left represents core workforce ecosystem components that influence how organizations understand workforce needs, design pathways, connect people to opportunities, address barriers, and measure success. So the components are clarify demand, align pathways, reimagine exploration and exposure, enable connection, equity by design, and reinforce and scale. And on the right-hand side, what we're representing is someone's pathway progression from awareness and exploration through readiness, employment, retention, and advancement. And one of the ideas that we're continuing to explore is the relationship between these two layers. and providing a way for us to create a more connected understanding of how different efforts contribute to career exploration and workforce outcomes. So some organizations might be really heavily involved in career exploration. Others might focus on training, employer engagement, supportive services, or advancement. And at the same time, organizations often measure success differently based on their role within the workforce ecosystem or the type of project that they're focused on. And rather than viewing these activities as separate or disconnected, we're kind of exploring whether this framework can help us create a more connected understanding. So it's also important to note that this it's not intended to be a linear process. Individuals can enter at different points, move through pathways differently, require supports at different times. What we're really interested in understanding is how the components all work together, where the gaps exist, and how organizations can better align their efforts. And this was kind of part of this was trying to better understand how to frame internally where IREC workforce projects sit. When we have, say 15 different projects that we're working on, how do we create a structure or framework so that we can talk about all of those different projects with different, focused on different parts of a pathway and different outcome metrics being tracked, how we can better communicate similarities across projects. So over the next several slides, we're going to walk through each component and share some examples from IREC's work that helped inform our thinking. But before we get to that, I think we're going to pass it to Susan, and we have another quick audience poll for you.
Hello, everyone. So before we take a look at each of the individual pieces of this, I'd like to hear from all of you. So as you think about your own organization and the work that you do, which of these components presents the greatest challenge today for you? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's going to probably be very diverse because of where you all are in the workforce ecosystem. So let's see, aligning pathways, good. Clarified demand. Excellent. The goal here isn't necessarily to identify the most important component, but rather to understand where organizations are encountering challenges and opportunities as they work to support workforce development and career outcomes. Very good, very good. Give it a few more seconds. Clarify demand, enable connection. Well, that's good. Great. Thank you very much. Michelle, you can close that poll. All right. Take a good look at those, and I'm going to pass it back to Pagan.
Yeah, this is super interesting. We knew that there would be a spread here. Just super interested in capturing some initial data and folks' initial responses to these questions as we start this conversation around the career activation framework. Michelle, I think you can pass it back to, or switch. Yeah, I think we've shared the results there. Next slide, please. Great. So thanks everyone for participating in the polls. We're looking forward to capturing everybody's input and thoughts today and putting it to work as we refine this approach. We noted before, it's really interesting to see like the different responses from organizations, and I think some themes arise to the top, but what the results really reinforce for me is that workforce challenges or areas of focus don't necessarily exist in isolation. So challenges with awareness would impact training enrollment, challenges with pathway alignment affect employer hiring, and challenges with connection and support really affect retention and advancement. And in many ways, that's really one of the reasons why we started developing this framework rather than rather than focusing on like a single program or group of people or intervention. We're really trying to figure out how we can collectively view all of those different parts and pieces in a way that's shared. Again, I've noted before that this is evolving. Today's discussion and webinar is really not about presenting a finished model. We really embrace a human-centered design approach to projects on our workforce team. And it's really important for us to test ideas, continue to identify gaps, and learn from the experiences of practitioners across the field. So to help bring these concepts to life and the components, we're going to share a couple of examples from IREC's workforce initiative. And the examples span communications and career exploration, training, credentialing, apprenticeship programs. And as you listen, we really encourage you to think about where these examples may align with your own experiences and where you might have examples that connect to each component, and also where you see opportunities to strengthen workforce pathways in your region. And so for each component, we're going to post a discussion prompt in the chat, and we'd love to have you respond there as you want to. And we will, I think, be collecting all of these prompts and poll questions and putting out a survey that will give folks an opportunity to put some more thought into their responses as we go along. And as I mentioned, we will be having in-person convenings related to framework development and also engaging in some one-on-one in virtual interviews and group conversations. So I'm going to pass it to Pilar to talk about our first component.
Thank you, Pagan.
You can advance the slide, please.
Thank you, Michelle. So let's start with clarify demand as our first component, right? Which focuses on understanding workforce demand and employer needs. As you're listening, please feel free to join the discussion in the chat. Like as Pagan mentioned, it's very important for us to understand and hear from different perspectives. So our prompt for this component is, what tools or data sources do you use to understand workforce demand in your region? As you participate in the chat, I will tell you that one of the reasons we began exploring this framework is that we realized that a number of IREC initiatives were helping us understand workforce demand from different perspectives. And we wanted a way to better understand the connections between these activities and how they contribute to broader workforce outcomes. For example, our employer engagement research explores how employers interact with workforce systems and the challenges they face in recruiting, hiring, and retaining workers. But also, our solar job census provides valuable insights into employment trends, workforce growth, and employer hiring needs across the solar industry. We also have our Alliance convenience, webinars, and workforce events that give us opportunities to hear directly from employers, workforce organizations, educators, and community partners about workforce challenges and emerging needs. And then our work with the Apprenticeships in Clean Energy Network, or as many as you know it, is the ACE network, reinforces the importance of understanding employer demand when developing apprenticeship strategies and workforce pathways. And of course, we also have a very important tool, which is labor market information data that help us identify workforce trends, occupations, and regional workforce needs. So when taken all together, these efforts reinforce that effective workforce strategies need to be informed by a clear understanding of workforce demand and employer needs. With that, I'll pass it to Susan to tell us about our second component.
Great. Thank you. Next slide, please. So thanks, Pilar. And the second component is aligned pathways, which focuses on creating clear and accessible pathways into quality careers. So please join us again and share your thoughts to the following question. Where do people most often get stuck when navigating career pathways? So if you'll put your answers in the chat. So as we continue to explore workforce activation, we found that many workforce challenges weren't necessarily about lack of opportunities. They were about helping people understand how to access and navigate opportunities and to give them confidence. Several IREC initiatives contributed to our thinking along this area. First, our work supporting registered apprenticeship development and expansion highlights the importance of creating structured pathways, and it connects individuals to employment while simultaneously helping employers build their talent pipelines. Also, through various IREC credentialing initiatives focused on quality training, we've explored how certifications, credentials, and other workforce preparation experiences can support career entry and advancement. Our work on pathway and ecosystem mapping focuses on helping individuals better understand the available opportunities, the progression routes, and potential career options. We've also worked closely with training providers and community-based organizations to strengthen connections between education, workforce development, and employment opportunities. And through our industry-recognized quality standards, like our national guideline standards and best practices, we've seen the value of greater consistency and transparency across the training and workforce systems. So if you look at all these things together, these efforts reinforce another important idea. Pathways should be clear, accessible, and connected to real opportunities so that individuals can easily move from interest to employment to advancement. This component asks us not only whether opportunities exist, but whether people can actually understand and navigate the pathway to reach them. Next slide, please, Michelle. So the third component we want to talk about is reimagine exploration and exposure, which focuses on expanding awareness and career discovery opportunities. So there's a question in the chat that I want you to take a look at and answer. What has been the most effective for raising awareness of clean energy and energy efficiency careers in your community? As we continue to explore workforce activation, we recognize we still have an awareness challenge. Many people simply don't know that these careers exist, what the work involves, or how to even get started. So a number of our initiatives kind of contributed to our thinking in these areas. First, our Exploring Solar Careers course. It was developed to help individuals learn about career opportunities, industry sectors, and potential entry points into the clean energy workspace. Our new Apprenticeship Ready course, which I think we discussed in the last webinar, helps students and job seekers better understand what an apprenticeship is, what apprenticeship opportunities exist, and how to prepare for careers in the skilled trades. Our IREC career maps provide visual tools to help people explore occupations, understand progression opportunities, and connect careers to training and certification pathways. We also have career story features. We've highlighted the experiences of real workers in clean energy and energy efficiency and showcased the many different routes people take into clean energy and energy efficiency careers. And through a variety of career exploration and outreach resources, along with our digital outreach campaigns, we've worked to support education, workforce professionals, and community organizations in helping individuals discover career opportunities. All of this together, all of these efforts reinforced another important idea. Awareness doesn't automatically lead to action. People are more likely to pursue opportunities when they can see themselves in the work, understand what the job involves, and experience careers in a meaningful and engaging way. So, what this asks us to think about as we move forward is to move beyond informing people about careers and instead create opportunities for exploration, discovery, and connection. Next slide, please. All right. So the fourth component is to enable connection. I think I saw some of you might have chosen this on the poll. We really want to focus on connecting people to train, support, and employment opportunities. So here's a question. If you could strengthen one connection in your workforce ecosystem, what would it be? Please respond in the chat. Many workforce challenges are not necessarily the result of missing programs or resources. Often the challenge is that people, organizations, and opportunities are not effectively connected to one another. Some of the IREC initiatives, which have led to us kind of coming up with this part of the career acronym, is you. All of you who attend these webinars. This National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance was created to strengthen connections across workforce ecosystems by bringing together employers, workforce organizations, educators, community-based organizations, labor partners, industry associations, and public agencies to share ideas and learn from one another. And you have been just doing that through all of the webinars, and we thank you for that. Our workforce development platform, Green Workforce Connect, was designed to help connect job seekers with job training opportunities, employers, workforce resources, and career exploration tools. Another example is our Apprenticeships in Clean Energy, or ACE network. It's focused on building stronger connections amongst apprenticeship sponsors, employers, workforce organizations, and training providers. And through a variety of technical assistance projects and workforce partnerships we've worked on, we've helped organizations identify opportunities for collaboration. We've strengthened referral networks and developed more coordinated workforce strategies, such as these. So across all these efforts that we've done, these initiatives, we repeatedly saw the importance of relationships, partnerships, quality partnerships, and navigation support. People are more likely to move successfully through workforce paths when all of us, with all our organizations, are connected and working together. This component asks us not only to think about the opportunities that exist, but also how effectively people are connected to those opportunities and to the supports they need to succeed. Next slide, and I'm going to pass it to Pilar.
Thank you, Susan. Well, that takes us to our fifth component, which is equity by design, which focuses on reducing barriers and expanding access throughout the workforce ecosystem. So our prompt for this discussion in the chat is, what barrier most often limits people from successfully accessing clean energy and energy efficiency careers? So please continue the discussion in the chat. In the meantime, I'll tell you that on our side, several IREC initiatives contributed to our thinking in this area. For example, Through partnerships with community-based organizations, we've worked to better understand the challenges individuals face and the important role trusted community partners play in connecting people to opportunities and supporting services. Our peer learning opportunities, workforce office hours, and convenience have provided space for organizations to share strategies, lessons learned, and approaches for creating more inclusive workforce systems. We have also developed targeted outreach and engagement resources designed to help organizations reach broader audiences and expand awareness of career opportunities. And just across many other workforce initiatives, we've focused on expanding access to workforce opportunities by identifying barriers, supporting multiple entry points, and highlighting promising practices from communities around the country. One of the things we've learned is that barriers can look very different depending on the individual and the community, but also on the stage of the pathway. So addressing those barriers requires intentional design and collaboration across the workforce ecosystem. Ultimately, this component asks us to consider not only who is participating, but who may be missing, what barriers exist, where are the gaps, what supports can help more people successfully enter, remain in, and advance within these careers. Next slide, Michelle, please. Okay, and with that, we have arrived to our final component, reinforce and scale, which focuses on how we track outcomes, refine approaches, and expand successful models through data, partnerships, and continuous improvement. One more time, join us in the chat for the following prompt. What impact information is most valuable to your organization, and tell us why? In the meantime, I will tell you that across IREC's work, we found ourselves asking questions such as, what's working and how might we do more of it? Are we collecting the right information to support better workforce decisions? Are we learning from one another to scale successful approaches? These questions are especially important because workforce challenges are often larger than any single organization, any single program, or any single funding opportunity. So by sharing lessons learned, examining outcomes, and continuously refining strategies, we can strengthen workforce ecosystems over time rather than simply repeating the same activities year after year. And from a human-centered design perspective, learning and iteration are essential. The goal isn't simply to measure activity, it is to understand what is creating the value and improving those outcomes for the people and communities we serve. So thinking about how we use project and program information to make continuous improvements to our work also help lead us to another realization. Organizations across the workforce ecosystem often measure success differently, which we know, right? And different types of outcomes matter at different stages of the workforce pathway. So think about that. Not only it's the measure of success differently, but it also matters in different stages of the workforce pathway. So that observation led us to explore an additional layer of the framework focus on pathway progression and outcomes, which Pagan will be talking about next. Pagan?
Thanks, Pilar. Thanks, for Michelle, for moving us along on our slides. So that covers kind of the brief overview of the 6 core workforce components that we've been looking at. And the next layer, as Pilar mentioned, is that pathway progression layer. So the stages shown here: awareness, exploration, readiness, employment, retention, and advancement, provide us with a way to think about how people move through their career journey and where different organizations might contribute along their pathway. So as we looked across our own workforce programs and had conversations with partners, a couple of things came up, some of which Pilar alluded to. Different organizations often support different stages of the pathway, and some organizations support multiple stages across that pathway. Someone's career journey is very rarely linear. People enter at different points, they move between stages, or they require different supports along the way, depending on what's happening in their life at that time. Somebody's career pathway is really a personal thing. We also found that this progression lens is helping us think about our own projects and initiatives in a different way. Kind of helped us determine or bucket our activities so that are focused primarily on awareness and exploration, and others that help prepare people for careers, connect to employment opportunities, or support long-term retention and advancement. So one of the things that we were doing as we were developing this framework and looking at this is thinking about the different projects and programs that we have on the workforce team at IREC and slotting them into these different stages of somebody's career journey. So just as the career components help us think about workforce ecosystem activities and the ways that our projects are supporting the workforce development, the pathway progression layer provides another way for us to understand how different programs or partnerships and interventions contribute to workforce outcomes over time. And once we started looking at the outcomes across the pathway, we realized that ourselves and lots of you out there are often measuring a different piece of the story. So I'm going to pass it back to Pilar to chat a little bit more about building this complete picture of workforce outcomes. Michelle, next slide, please.
Thank you, Pagan. Thank you, Michelle. So as I mentioned before, right, one of the challenges we encounter in workforce development is that organizations often define and measure success differently, which is not a problem. Different organizations play different roles in the workforce ecosystem, so it makes sense that they focus on different outcomes. For example, as you can see on the table, so employers may focus on hiring needs, retention, productivity, or time to fill positions. Training providers often focus on enrollment, completion, and credential attainment. Workforce organizations may focus on placement, retention, and participant progression. Community-based organizations may focus on engagement, barriers, and support service utilization. And funders and policymakers are often interested in the broader outcomes, the impact, the scalability, the return on investment. So each of these measures provides valuable information. The challenge is that they often tell us only a little piece of the story. So if our goal is to strengthen workforce pathways, we need ways to understand how these different efforts and outcomes connect to one another. That is one of the reasons we are exploring pathway progression as part of the career framework. Not because every organization should track the same metrics, but because a shared framework and shared language around those metrics may help us better understand how different activities contribute to broader workforce outcomes. Next slide, and Susan.
Great. So we talked about the workforce ecosystem components, the pathways to progression. Now we'd like to hear a little bit more of what you all see, where you all fit in within that picture. As Pilar noted, organizations contribute at different stages of the workforce pathway, and many of you support more than one stage. So for this poll here, I want you to think about the work that your organization does most often. Which pathway stage does your organization primarily support? And we'll give everyone a moment to respond.
I'm loving all of the conversation in the chat too. Thanks so much, everybody, for adding your thoughts and your feedback and your input. It's really great. And I see that some folks have shared email addresses and are going to make connections as well.
I'll give you a few more seconds to get your answers. I see some things are moving still. Okie doke. Well, I think what's interesting about this question is that while organizations may identify a primary stage, I'm guessing that you may be contributing in multiple stages across the whole pathway. So thank you, everyone. This is great. It's great to see the diversity and the perspectives represented by all of you here today. And as Pagan said, the conversation in the chat has been excellent. The results really kind of reinforce one of the ideas we've been discussing through this webinar, and that is workforce outcomes are shaped by many different organizations working across different stages of the pathway. No single organization is responsible for the entire journey. And the challenge and the opportunity is finding a better understanding of how these efforts connect and contribute to the broader workforce outcomes. And then that brings us to the next question that we've been exploring. And Michelle, you can close the poll, and I'm going to pass it to Pagan, and you can go to the next slide.
Oh, Pagan, you're muted.
Of course I am. Thank you so much for letting me know. So as we've continued exploring the career framework, we've become increasingly interested in what this shared framework might enable for us, for our workforce partners, for employers, educators, community-based organizations, and other organizations that are supporting the workforce ecosystem. And to be clear, again, we don't see that the framework is an end goal in itself. The real question here is whether shared structure and language can help us all strengthen workforce ecosystems and improve workforce outcomes. And these are some of the areas that we're continuing to explore and will continue to explore through interviews, in-person convenings, and future alliance engagements. And for example, could a shared framework help organizations better understand their role within the broader workforce ecosystem and how their work connects to the efforts of others, and where they might be best suited to make connections with other types of organizations that are maybe on the next step in a career progression journey or the previous step? Could it help identify opportunities for stronger coordination and partnership development? Could it provide a common language for discussing workforce outcomes while still recognizing that different organizations contribute in different ways and measure success differently? We're also exploring whether the framework can improve visibility into workforce pathways, support more informed decision-making by all of us, and help local communities develop practical tools and resources that can be adapted to their needs. At this stage, we don't have all the answers. What we do have are a lot of questions and a lot of interest in hearing from folks like you. We've got promising questions, we think. We've got early observations and definitely growing interest from workforce partners in exploring these ideas together. And that brings us to some of the questions that we're continuing to explore as this work evolves. Michelle, you can switch to the next slide. So if we've shared throughout today's discussion, and I've mentioned a couple of times, this is still evolving. We're not presenting a finished model here. We're sharing a set of observations, ideas, and questions that have emerged through our workforce development work. Like I mentioned before, across a lot of our projects, we see common challenges emerge. That's also been clear in the chat. Employers struggle to find talent, and that leads us to ask what roles, skills, and pathways matter the most. Job seekers often struggle to navigate opportunities. which raises questions about what helps people discover, prepare for, and pursue these careers. Workforce efforts are really often disconnected and fragmented across organizations, different sectors, and different programs, which leads us to explore which connections and supports matter most. And I noted a comment in the chat earlier related to like a list of employers. If you're not familiar with greenworkforceconnect.org, that is a place where IREC is starting to build lists of employers and training providers through our Connect Now map. Anyway, but I digress there a little bit. But that fragmentation and how to connect people, the raising awareness and connection keeps coming up, I think, more frequently than other areas. So the questions that we're asking don't necessarily have simple answers. They're unlikely to be solved by a single organization. And because success is measured differently across organizations, we're still continuing to ask, how do we know pathways are working? And as a national intermediary, IREC has the opportunity to work across all of you, employers, educators, workforce organizations, labor partners, industry associations, and state and local agencies. And one of our roles is helping bring those perspectives together, identify common challenges, share promising practices, and strengthening the overall workforce ecosystem. And that's one of the reasons that the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance exists. And you know, we're really grateful again to the Bank of America Foundation that recognizes that this workforce ecosystem development, the relationship building, the peer learning, and the workforce convenings are really important parts of creating long-term workforce solutions. And these questions are going to continue to inform our interviews and future framework development. And most importantly, they'll continue to be shaped by conversations like this one. Michelle, can you advance to the next slide? Great. So one of the reasons that we're sharing this work now, we've been engaged in kind of early exploration of this since kind of late last year. And one of the reasons that we're sharing this is because we strongly believe that the best workforce solutions are developed with people, not for people. Personally, throughout my career, I've been drawn to design thinking, human-centered design, and system-based approaches to solving complex challenges. And we've mentioned that our project approach and workforce approach is really based in human-centered design principles. I've been applying these approaches since 2011 through both workforce and education initiatives, and have seen firsthand how engaging the broader population of networks available to us, testing assumptions and learning from different perspectives really does lead to stronger and more sustainable solutions. And those approaches start by listening, asking questions, testing ideas, and learning from the people that are doing the work every day, like you. And in many ways, that's exactly how this framework has evolved. It's not the result of a single project or a single organization. It's emerged from conversations with organizations like yours all across the country. Collaboration and knowledge sharing are really at the heart of IREC's work, and our most successful projects, programs, and partnerships are built through relationships and a willingness to learn from each other, which Susan highlighted earlier in the conversation. So simply put, we can't do this work without you. It's one of the reasons that the Alliance exists, to create opportunities for connection. And so as we continue to explore and refine the framework, we'd really like to have your input. So which of the areas listed on the screen there right now would you like to see most prioritized as we continue developing the framework? And that's not to say that we're going to drop any of them there. We'd just like to get a quick sense of where folks see their own work being a priority and fitting in with this framework. And Michelle, I think you can move to the next slide. So next steps, like we've mentioned, today's webinar is just the beginning of the conversation. Over the summer, we're going to continue gathering perspectives and input from folks like you through partner interviews, alliance engagement activities. And then this fall, we're going to bring people together through our Midwest Workforce Strategy Lab with a Chicago convening on September 28th to further test and refine these ideas. And by sometime in the winter, we're hoping to be able to share a refined framework along with some practical tools and resources that our workforce partners can adapt and apply in your own organizations and communities. And I do want to note that if you are located in the Midwest within reasonable travel of Chicago, and you're available on September 28th, please do reach out to us to be put on our interest list, and we will share information back with you as our details become available. And I'm going to drop my email in the chat in case that's a fit for any of you. So next, we're going to move to the next slide, which I think is our discussion questions and answers. We'll open it up to questions. You can use the Q&A function to submit questions that you have. And if we're not able, I think we'll be able to cover them all today. We've shared a lot of ideas. The framework is still evolving, and we're generally appreciative of your feedback. We'd love to hear. Feel free to post in the chat what's resonated with you today, what feels missing, where do you see opportunities to strengthen the framework. We would really like to get your reactions. So we had a question submitted. When we say clarify demand, I'm curious what data sources folks use to identify workforce demand in the clean energy sector. I can tell you from IREC's perspective, we use Lightcast. We use direct employer conversations, training provider conversations. We use data from things like our ACE network, Apprenticeships and Clean Energy Network, which Susan leads and mentioned earlier. We also use data from our credentialing programs, which help us connect to training programs, BLS, labor market information that is publicly available. And I think other folks had some suggestions in the chat as well. I don't see any other paid data sets like Lightcast being listed, but there are some other ones out there. So if you use anything else, I'd love to hear what those options are. We had another similar question. Are there specific labor market data sources or projects that IREC is finding helpful and would like to highlight? That's a really similar question to the first one. Lightcast is the data set that we use, and we rely pretty strongly on those direct opportunities for connection and feedback from our workforce partners. And then within specific projects, we do track other types of data. For example, we had a project recently where we were tracking time to hire over the course of 2 years, and another one where we were tracking increase in size of the workforce within a certain subset of our project work. Do we have anything related to upcoming legislative changes that can be shared with stakeholders, such as federal rebate changes? And I think this is possibly related to something that Ken mentioned related to legislative actions that tie to specific rebates such as homes. And here, I don't have specifics right now. I think we all follow news and changes to legislation and incentives and tax credits and opportunities. I think in the solar and storage sector right now, the investment tax credits and the sunsetting of those are definitely a hot topic. Let's see if we have any other. I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. If things occur to you, do feel free to reach out to our team or to me, or to add things in the chat. We're happy to answer questions after the fact as well. Michelle, you can move to the next slide, please. So we have a couple of things to share before we wrap up for today. I mentioned earlier the Alliance hosts webinars every second month. So the next one will be on August 19th, followed by one in October and one in December. We will have registration details available soon for the August event. And those will be coming out in our workforce newsletter, which you will all you'll all receive that. And we also have a number of opportunities coming up where you can engage with IREC staff that will be on site attending events like the NARUC Summer Summit in Minneapolis. We've got a few folks going to Energy Out West in Phoenix, Arizona later this summer. There is the 4th Roadmap Conference in Seattle, Washington, CHESA Energize Summit. If you have an event that you know of that you're going to, that you think folks should know about, feel free to post that in the chat. We will also be at the MTerra Annual Summit in New Buffalo, and there's a mistake on that slide. It's New Buffalo, Michigan, not New Buffalo, Minnesota. I've mentioned the IREC workshop that we're hosting on September 28th in Chicago. And then we have a large contingent of staff attending the RISE Leadership Summit, also in Chicago in September, and highly recommend that event if you have not participated before. That is the Women in Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy Leadership Summit, and everybody is welcome. And it's been a really valuable experience for me over the last couple of years. And I think I'm going to pass to Pilar. We have a couple of opportunities coming up with the workforce team or underway with the workforce team that we'd like to share with you. Pilar?
Yes, thank you, Megan. Yes, so for this opportunity, IREC is partnering with MEF Associates on a new national research study. It's called Employer Engagement Strategies in the Clean Energy Sector, STEP. The project examines training providers' relationships with employers in the clean energy sector and how this might affect workers' employment outcomes, such as getting a job, changing careers, or increasing wages. We will use our findings to improve workforce development policy and practice across the sector. The details on eligibility will be in the chat. But just heads up, participation involves a 1-hour phone conversation with someone at MEF to discuss your relationships with clean energy employers. And also there will be some sharing job market data about students in your training programs. What we request will be aggregated data, meaning average employment rates and average wages across your program participants. The participating programs will receive an honorarium, and if you are interested in being part of this opportunity or can recommend a training provider, please get in touch with our IREC Director of Workforce Training and Community Engagement, Matthew Harris. We'll put his email in the chat, or any of us, really. And I'll pass it to Susan with more opportunities.
Next slide. So we've got some good things happening. We were the Department of Labor intermediary for the last couple of years, and now we're still continuing that work in registered apprenticeships. So currently we are working with Building Performance Association to provide technical assistance to employers looking for home energy, weatherization. We're doing some HVAC stuff, energy auditors. So if you are interested in receiving some technical assistance, both on that or in any other areas, you can log into our Green Workforce Connect and complete the technical assistance survey to let us know what kind of technical assistance you're looking for. Pilar, if you could put that um, in the chat for me, that'd be great. So yeah, the ACE network continues, and we are always looking for registered apprenticeship programs to post in clean energy, to post on Green Workforce Connect, and to help job seekers connect there. Another interesting initiative we're working on is the intersection of IT and clean energy. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at data scientists, cyber security or information analyst, security analysts. We're working on that project with Urban Institute and Perscolis and CWA. So if you have, if you're working in the clean energy uh, sector and you have a department, an IT department or IT people that are data scientists, software developers, computer network support, information security analysts, we would love to interview them as part of that project. It's about 45 minutes, and they're going to be turned into videos, and they'll be for job seekers. You can email us there. Just to note, our Green Workforce Connect does now include information on career pathways in IT and clean energy, which is super exciting and is a part of the work that we've done with Urban Institute. So I encourage you, if you're working with students, individuals looking for jobs in that arena, to check that out. And with that, next page, the next slide, Michelle, thank you. And I'm going to pass it back to Pagan.
Thanks so much, all. I did note we had another question come in through the QA, and it was posted in the chat. I'm interested in starting up a workforce development and training program in clean energy. Can anyone provide guidance on how to get started? One recommendation there is to reach out to other folks that are doing this type of work. That is often a great way to understand where they've had challenges, what's been successful. I also would highlight that IREC's credentialing program, we offer accreditation for training programs. You do have to be in operation for 1 year before you're eligible for IREC accreditation. But I'll post a link to key documents in the chat, because utilizing the candidate handbook and looking at some of the other guidance documents there. For example, there's a guidance document for applicants all about assessments. It is often, and also looking at our ANSI standards related to accreditation of clean energy technology training. Those documents can be very helpful in the review process as you're setting up a program, or before you're setting up a program, just for you to understand the components and the pieces that go into quality training in this space. This is the conclusion of our programming for today. I really encourage you to stay connected with the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. We do have a LinkedIn group. If you're not part of the LinkedIn group, please do sign up and join us there. And you can visit the Alliance page if you're curious about updates, resources, upcoming events. As a final note, thank you so much for joining us today. We will share an email summary and links to the presentation recording and resources that have been shared today. But again, note we're on a little bit of a delayed schedule for this webinar because we have a number of staff members that are taking vacation over the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much for being here. And with that, we will wish you all well. And again, our appreciation for you joining in the conversation about our new career activation framework.